we don't have time for me to rave on. Big round of applause, because standing outside is the one and only Q, Mr. John Lancie. I thought it was Conquest 90 all over again. Conquest 90, we had John Pertwee. I said, John Pertwee, and the doors open, nobody was there, and he walked in down there. It's all yours.
Thank you. How long have you been sitting? For a long time? Oh, why don't you stand up and rub each other's fannies or something, you know? I'm serious. Stand up, stretch.
The only
you don't
problem
want to
is
sit down. I won't start right away.
Fanny means something different in Australia.
Oh, it does? I hesitate to ask. Well, go ahead and I'll watch. So you don't want to stretch, I can say. I really don't know what to say after that. I think I should know my entrance and my exit line, and I do. All right. Boy, this is loud, isn't it? I don't want to be bombarding you. I'm here to tell you anything you'd like to know and to explain it in as excruciating detail as you wish to hear it in. And I think that maybe the best way to start is for me to just tell you that the questions, or my answers, are really dictated by how specific your questions are. The game rules are for you to know that I don't write the stuff. I hardly watch the stuff. Boo. And I can't answer questions like, you know, what if questions. What if Q met Godzilla or something like that? But other than that, I can tell you a great deal about each and every episode that I've shot, how I got the job, you know, one's life as an actor in California, and all that type of stuff. So I open it up to you, and let's start with the questions.
Are you Canadian?
No, but I hear they're really stupid.
Here we go.
Oh, are we going to do it so that people... Oh, you're going to run around the room. Wow, that's... Yes.
Excuse me, John. I follow just a lot of... I like a lot of actors and actresses, but basically, if you had your chance to do what you've done, your acting career, would you change anything?
This is one of those if questions. If I had a chance in my acting career, would I do anything? There's a saying, by the way, now that I've broken the ice with that other word, there's a saying in America, especially about if questions. My grandfather used to love to do it. He said, if my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. I don't really know how to answer what else I would have done. I think that, I mean, that's your question, right? What else would I have done? Doing? Oh, you know what? I think that maybe what I would have done, is it safe?
Yeah.
I think that what I would have done is that it would have been easier for me if I had had a mentor, somebody who I trusted and who I could follow, you know, their suggestions. I am a mentor for a lot of different students who I have, and I think that what would have been good would have been that I would have been forced to do more plays early on. I did a lot of plays, but I kind of waffled a little bit. I wasn't as focused as I might have been early on, and that's the only difference. I'm glad that I've chosen to go into the commercial end of the business rather than into the theater end of the business. I do plays. I do a couple of plays a year, but in our in America, the theater does not support its actors. So you have to do commercial work. So in that respect, I'm happy to have continued in that area. Yes?
Last time you were here, you said that you still had to queue up with about 400 people for any work. Now that you're getting better known in things like Star Trek, is it easier?
The people who watch Star Trek are mostly the fans. The people who watch Star Trek are not the people who really make the hiring decisions. Very few people who make the hiring decisions watch much of anything. So when it comes to television, you usually come in pretty well anonymous. I mean, they might know, and I'll tell you, there are lots of people who I'll walk in the room and I say, God, I saw you on this, and I saw you on that, and I saw you on that, and you'd be terrific, and you were terrific, but you still have to audition for the role. I did a Peter Weir film just recently, and I try to hide, in a way, what it is that I do. If it's with film people, I only talk about film. With television people, I only talk about television. And we were out shopping in San Francisco to get my outfit, and we were just in the regular in the stores, and people were coming up to me. I mean, a lot of people were coming up. In about an hour, maybe about 25 people came up and asked for my autograph, and I was there with Wendy Weir, and finally they just turned to me and they said, "Who are you?" And I was a little concerned because, you know, in a film, you want people to know that it's Isabella Rossellini, and you want people to know that it's Jeff Bridges, but for the character actors, they need to disappear. They need to be the character and not a personality. Yes?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I can hear, and I'll repeat the question.
All right.
Everybody asks me about how I got the role of Q. I slept with Gene Roddenberry. Or it was someone who said he was Gene Roddenberry. I auditioned, just like everybody else, for the character. Actually, what had happened is that I was doing a play, Terra Nova. I was also doing a television show, and my second child was about to be born. It was a busy time. And I got a call from my agents, and they said, we would like you, there's a request from a producer, and they want you to come in over at Paramount and audition for Star Trek. I went, Star Trek? I thought they already did Star Trek. She says, no, they're doing a new version. I said, no. And I looked at my schedule, and I couldn't find the time. And a couple of days later, or maybe a week later, I got a call again from my agent saying, you know, this guy keeps on calling. Well, why don't you go over? So I went over, and I auditioned. And then I got a call back. I came back, and this time the room was filled with people. You know, the first audition is usually maybe 4 or 5 people. When they want to make their decision, especially when it comes to television, there are many, many more people. And I auditioned, and I walked out, and the man came out behind me, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, "You make my words sound better than they are." I had no idea who this guy was. I said, "Oh, thank you," and I figured maybe I had the job, and I kept on walking out, and then there was another person who opened the door, like that. So I went into another room, and he said, "Do you know who that was?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, that was Gene Roddenberry." I said, "Who's he?" He said, "Well, he's the creator of Star Trek." I said, "Oh." He said, "And I am the person who called for you." He said, "And I want you to know this is a payback." And I said, "I want you." He said, "Well, about 5 years ago, I was in the intensive care of Cedars-Sinai Hospital, having a quadruple heart bypass, and every day at around 1 o'clock, the hospital would come to this kind of dead standstill, and you would come on the television, everybody was watching a show called Days of Our Lives, and he said, "You made me laugh when I thought I was going to die." And he said, and I thought that if I had ever had an opportunity, I would pay that actor back. So that's how I got the job. Yes? No. Not only could I not play the trumpet, but as I recall, there wasn't even any music at that point. And I kept on saying, listen, guys, I need to have some idea of what it is that I'm, doing the tango to here, So they they played the music long enough while I was getting ready. It was on the set, and I was getting actually dressed on the set because there were just very few minutes to go. We had to pull the plug at midnight because it was Thanksgiving, a big national holiday the next day, and they played the music for me 2 or 3 times as I'm getting dressed, and off I went. Yeah, that was quite fun because that started with a very long. That day started with me being at 6 o'clock in the morning, walking out on the set and having to shoot that scene where I'm naked on the bridge. And after about an hour and a half of trying to get the shot, finally I said, listen, guys, I've got a really long day today, and I got a lot of words. What seems to be the problem? And they said, well, we can't seem to get past, the indent of the jock strap, across. And I said, look, those of you in the room who want to go. Those of you who want to stay, but it's coming off. I said, let's shoot it. So that was the beginning of that day, and it ended at night. I was just being taken from one set to the next, and around 11 that night, I got rushed over to the bridge, and they're stripping me down on the set because we're really moving quickly now. And they're putting on this outfit, and I go, what the hell is this? This is your... And I was going, this is a matador outfit. What is this? This is the mariachi scene. I haven't learned the mariachi scene. So I began, and it was, thank God it was for Days of Our Lives, actually, because I began to get a little panicky, and I thought, oh, shit. What am I going to do about this? There was a lot. I knew I had to shoot really quickly, and then I went, wait a minute. I've been in this situation a million times before. I know how to handle this. And and for an actor, what you begin doing is you calm it down, you compartmentalize it, you organize it very quickly, and you just go through the beats and all that stuff. And then I was able to do it. But it was quite a night. Yes. That's it. Oh, yes. Yes and no. The question was, do I enjoy a character that possesses so much power? The acting trick is this. When you play a character and the audience is told you're a lawyer, or you're a doctor, or you're God, you don't have to play that because it's a given. The audience immediately... It's like when Marcel Marceau takes an imaginary dog across the stage, he just to go like this, like that, and the audience is so willing to go with you that you don't have to belabor that part. So my job is not to play a god. My job is to find the underneath of that, and because you're already giving me all those omnipotent qualities, so I don't have to go after that. I have to find the things that are underneath that. Yes. Which was my favorite episode? I think my favorite script, there's a difference, and I'll explain to you the difference in my mind. My favorite script was Tapestry, which was the one in which I give Picard his heart back. There's a big difference between favorite episode and favorite script. Just like when you read a book, your imagining of that book is sometimes far superior than what ultimately you see on the screen. When I read a script, my imagining of it is often far superior. So, or different. So when I finally get to see the material, I'm sometimes disappointed. Tapestry, while I thought held together better than most of the other stuff that I've done. I didn't like the heaven sequence. I didn't think that was well shot. My 8-year-old son, who clearly has directorial, I mean, that he's beginning to show directorial flair. He saw the episode before I did, and a couple of days later when we were having dinner, I said, "What do you think of the show?" And he said, "Well, I thought it was pretty good, Dad, but I didn't like the way they shot heaven." And I go, why is that? And he said, "Well, I think you should have been 15 feet tall." And I think that they talked a lot about shadows, and instead of it being in white light, you should have been in shadows. It would have been, everybody's idea of heaven is that it's bright, and it would be more interesting if you were in shadows and there would be. I go, you can direct the next one. So, but there, some of the others, the opening, the first show, that was interesting. That was interesting to do. The one in which I lost my powers, that was fun. It doesn't have, unfortunately, Star Trek doesn't have the improvisational latitude that some shows, that I would like. There are you cannot improvise scenes. I think I made a comment last time I was here that there was been some wonderful improvised lines in the one where in the Robin Hood one my henchman says tomorrow's going to be a marvelous day. There'll be a wedding and an execution. And I turned, and I'm supposed to watch him go away, and then turn back like this, and the camera's supposed to dump on me. And I watched him go, and I turned back like this, and then I looked right, not into the camera, but right beyond the camera, and I went, but I thought all weddings were executions. And they just, if they don't think of it, they're not happy to have it, so. Yes, this quadrant, her hat, yes. Insights? Gossip. Well, I don't spend very much time over there. I have found that in my business, when you want something, and if somebody smells it, that's when you don't get it. I go on, I do a job when they call me, and if I'm available. I'm there for 8 days or 10 days with prep, and then I simply disappear. You don't see me again there unless I'm called. I don't go unless I'm paid. And while my relationship with these people is quite good, and I think that I respect them, and I think that they respect me. And I've heard from other people, they say, "Oh yes, we like, when John comes on, because it's always, we know that it's going to be popping. I mean, it'll be sometimes a more exciting show." I don't really spend any time with them. The only personal thing actually that took place recently is that Patrick and I were supposed to get together for dinner, and we ended up over at my house, and it ended up falling through. So there's not really any personal stories to tell you about. That's kind of the way it is in our business. What? On the set, not for me. When I'm hired, I have far too much to do. I've gotten my lines no earlier than 2 days before, and I just, I'm cramming. I'm usually in most scenes, and if I'm not in a scene, I'm trying to learn what the next scene is going to be, and there really isn't any of that stuff going on. Now, when I was working on, like Days of Our Lives, and I was there all the time, I have very amusing stories about that. But in terms of Star Trek, it's much more business oriented. Yes. Well, I would encourage them to do anything that they want to do. However, being an actor is really at the low end of the totem pole. It's what interfaces with you, and hence you think that it's being at the high end of the totem pole. It really isn't. It's the producer. It isn't even the writer or the director, at least in America. It's the producer who pulls the strings. They're the ones who have the power, and they are the ones who have the control. And I would say that while it's important to know how to act, and it's important to know how to light and to know how to direct and to do all those things, it's really also very important in one's life, I think, to have a little bit of control. And in my life, there's very little of it. I'm kind of a feather for every wind that blows.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, you know what? I don't know, because I don't know which bloopers they keep and what they don't keep. And most bloopers are not particularly interesting. I mean, you know, it'll be something like this, is that you'll be there and you'll pour the coffee, and, you know, and the coffee will go like, you know, it'll spill and get on you, and you go, and you turn to the camera and go, oh, shit. and they go, a cut. And then you got 25 people there. You know, somebody's taking this thing's been pulled off. There's a new, you know, somebody's doing like this with a hair dryer to your pants. Somebody, while at the same time they're doing your hair and your makeup, you know, and you just stand there like this, you know. And then, you know, we're ready to go again. Obviously, on the stage, it's very different because there isn't any of that. So it's on stage that the biggest bloopers happen. But there is a blooper that took place that went out on the air, actually on Days of Our Lives, where I was very, very naughty most of the time. And it was I had become quite disdainful of the fact that on that show, the actors, encouraged by the producers, who I felt really didn't know good acting from bad acting, were asking actors who did not know good acting from bad acting either, some of them, to emotionalize so much that it took away the audience's opportunity to share in the experience. You know, like that, and you're just, you know, you're just watching. You mean, so you don't do that. One of the things in acting is that as you get better, you begin to realize that you must allow the audience to do its part. Well, this particular day, the character of Roman, who was the hero on the show, was to die. And I walked onto the set, which Roman, yeah, right? I walked onto the set. By the way, may I have a glass of water? Somebody back there, who's ever running the show. I was asked, the minute I walked onto the set that day, I walked into the studio and they said, "Today Roman dies, John. And it's very serious. No funny stuff." I said, "Okay, I understand that, okay." So I ended up, the particular scene, we went through all the scenes and stuff like that, and I was with a girl, Arlene Sorkin, a very talented and wonderful girl and actress, and played a part of Calliope with me. And in any case, the scene is some sort of desert island scene, and Roman has washed up on the beach, you know, and he's dead. Thank you. And in the way in which the writers had it, all the characters were coming onto the beach and discovering Roman. You know, like a whole litany. I mean, a list of them. Every character in the fucking show was coming onto the thing, going, "Oh my God, Roman," like that. So, in any case, it was my turn, my scene to come on, you know. So I'm walking out with Calliope out of the bushes, and I see Roman, and I go, "Oh my God, it's Roman," and I pick him up, and I do the speech that I'm supposed to do. And I finished the speech, and a couple of actors who I actually had a lot of respect for, I finished the thing, and I see them go. And I hear over the loudspeaker, John, it's got to be a lot more emotional than that. I mean, come on now, you're really upset. This is your pal, John. I go, I was. Christ, I mean, what? Jesus. So I go back to do it again, right? So I'm hearing, and I go back with Arlene, and I'm saying, God, these guys, they don't know their business. They're just jerks. They don't know good acting from bad acting. And, you know, we're walking around like this. And she goes, calm down, calm down, calm down. She was always, like, concerned that I was going to explode. And I said, I'm telling you, they would not know good acting from bad acting. And I'm hearing, okay, John, 5, 4, 3, and I go, now, I have to tell you, I had had a rather large Mexican dinner that around that lunchtime, and I said, Darlene, pull my finger. She goes, what? 2, pull my finger. 1, like that. And she looked at me. I mean, it was loud. Wow. And she looked at me, and we went, action! Roman! Roman! Oh, Roman! I was in hysterics. Tears were pouring down my face. Arlene is standing like this. Like that. I do all the words, we finish the scene, and I'm figuring, you know, like that. We finish the scene, and there's silence for a moment, and then you hear over the loudspeaker, fabulous, John. And Arlene went, you, like that. So that went out. That went out on the air, and that was a blooper, but... All right. Of course, that's another show. We shouldn't be talking about that show, right? Yes. Oh, you know what? It's kind of an if question. What if I had the choice? If I had the power, if I had the thing. Patrick actually asked me a couple of days ago. He said, you know, I see that they have made the last episode, or the last episode a 2-hour, 2-parter. He said, wouldn't it be wonderful if it could be a show about Q and Picard coming to grips with each other and also resolving the whole issue of the Borg. And I said, well, yeah, it would be nice, Patrick, but he said, well, have you talked to them about that? And I said, you know, Patrick, and this is apropos the question over here, I said, I don't talk to them about anything because I just find that the minute you articulate what it is you want to somebody who has power, you're pretty damn sure that you're not going to get it. So I don't know what to say about that. You know, what would I do? I don't know. I never think about it, frankly. I mean, other than when Patrick mentioned it, I don't think about it because it's not something I can affect. I don't know, where are you? Who asked me that question? There we are. It's not something that I can affect. So it just kind of gets me kind of annoyed or you know. So I don't have a ready answer for you. Yes? If my aunt had balls, she'd be mine. You should be a politician. You're good at this. Sure. Yeah. Sure. I you know, I would look at the role and I would do all the regular things that one does to decide to do a show. What's that? Flip a coin. Right. Right. See what the balance in the account is. Yes. Well, I think since I've been here last, I've done Man and Superman, Shaw's Man and Superman, and Marnie I played Jack Tanner, and Marnie played Anne in that. That was a great role. I'm not in the repertory, so I don't have those that I go to and say, oh, that's what I would want to do. If I wanted to do that, I would go I would leave Los Angeles and I would go to Seattle or San Francisco or some of those places and be able to play those roles. But that's not what I do, and so I don't think about those. I'm directing more. I'm doing a lot of directing for National Public Radio and things, and so everything that I'm working on are new plays. It's all future stuff. Yes. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Deep Space Nine is thank you, is a long, seemed to be kind of a slow show to work on. When I worked on it, they didn't seem to have a lot of the stuff worked out, so that the days were long. 2:30 in the morning is a long day when you start at 6. But in terms of who it is, I mean, obviously my main squeeze is Patrick, and he's the one that I have the greatest relationship with, a character to character. So those are the ones in which I tend to look forward to. But if I go on that show for any length of time, then I probably would develop or try to develop that relationship with Cisco. Yes. I was at the hotel down at the Hyatt down in Sanctuary Cove for a couple of days, and there was an American there who has been living here for the last 25 years, who said, "You played the gynecologist and the Rocks of Cradle." I said, "Yes." Everywhere I went in that hotel, for 3 days, he would come up to me and he goes, "Now, tell me exactly what you did." Finally, my wife is finally like, "What's the problem here? He's told you 22 times. But I don't understand why he was so persecuted and all that." Would I like to play more characters like that? Sure. I'm playing a character like that, right? I'm going back on tomorrow to do a movie on Monday, start a movie on Monday, and I play a character. I wish it were as well written or potentially as good. I mean, it's a much bigger part, and it's the evil guy in this movie. But I like characters like that. They're fun. They're fun, and they seem to stay in people's imaginations. Yes. That only works. Did everybody hear the question? Yes. That only works if it's written. You see, if it's written, then there are all sorts of things that you can do. Then the collaboration takes place. As I said in Star Trek, the collaboration is not very much. The movie that I'm starting on Monday actually is quite a bit of a collaboration. I've been faxing stuff back and forth. We've had meetings about how the character could develop and what have you. On Star Trek, it doesn't work that way. But if it's written, then I can say to Patrick, "Hey, listen, Patrick, what if we tried this? What if we did that?" And we would negotiate. But the script has to be there. The issue is the script there. Yeah, well. Yes, in the back. I don't know if many of them know who Hamlet was. I understand what you're just adjunct to that, there was a rather amusing story which was, what was the play? It was a script that was presented to a producer. I think it was one of Shaw's plays that was presented to a producer, and the guy said, you know, this is really, it was a small play. He said, this is really, really very good. We're going to need some rewrites on it, and I just want to make sure we don't use the original. I just don't. Let's work it out so we don't use the first writer. You know, let's use another writer. And of course, the guy who's presenting this to this producer is thinking, oh my God, this guy's so stupid, he doesn't even know what he's looking at. What happens is this: is that more often than not, you don't even see the entire finished script. You are given sides, what we call sides. They are made up of the more difficult scenes, or the scenes that the director and the producer feel are audition quality scenes that give you a good idea of the range of the character, and they want to see each and every actor do them. You come in. You can get your material the day before. You can get your material. You know, it depends. Everybody's got a different way of doing it. Some people want to see it long in advance. I only want to see it long in advance if I think it's worthy of that type of attention. Most of the time, it isn't, and I just come in and I figure I can do a pretty good job without too much preparation. And you come in and you do your thing. More often than not, you're not being picked for your acting ability, but rather for your type. And in Los Angeles, certainly, because New York has essentially emptied out and come to Los Angeles now, there are hundreds of people who are available for each and every role. And they can simply choose. You know, they can say, gee, you know, we want somebody who looks just like you, except I like a little more graying on the side, you know. Can we get somebody with blue eyes? I imagine that they're... And when it comes to women, and women do this for men, depending on how the casting is, it's really the process is of selection in the eyes of the person making the choice is really a matter of whatever their sexual fantasies and perversions might be. You know, and we do it to ourselves all the time. You're scanning people that way, and they can say, and I've been in these auditions before, they can say, they can come in and they can, well, listen to the script I'm doing. I mean, it's ridiculous. Every time that there's a woman in the script, it says, gorgeous, you know, voluptuous. And you kind of go, oh, God. But you know that what they're going to be able to do to the casting person is say, I want to see the best looking women in Los Angeles. And I want to see them for 4 days worth, starting at 10 o'clock, 10 to 6. Okay? What do you want? Red? Blonde? How do you want them? And it's a steady stream. And the women can do if the woman is in the power, she goes, I want to see the guys with the, I want to see my fantasy. I want to see fantasies. And so it gets a little annoying after a while. Yes? Oh, I played a guy who actually I didn't read the script before doing it. I was shooting something else and they needed an answer right away, and I said to my wife, why don't you read the script and she tell me what you think, and she called me back an hour or so later and she said, oh, you'll love it. You play a villain who electrocutes country western singers. So that's for me. Yes. Well, you know what? I couldn't, if somebody had a gun to my head, I couldn't tell you any of those lines. I just, they go in 1 minute and they're out the next, and that's the end of it. I just don't have any recollection of them. I'm sorry. Yes, it does. Yes. A lot of people have wanted that to be done, but the people who don't want that to be done are the people who have who it is that it's their choice. The writer-producers have not chosen to, want that done. So, and I would say that at this point, the feasibility of it being done is nil. What's that? Oh, yes, I did an audio version of the book, which is available. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, no, I in a way I wish I did, because the one outfit I hate is the one that they all have to wear. The ones that, this outfit, it's really a drag to wear those. I wish I wore more of them. There's a gay newspaper called The Advocate in Los Angeles, and it's the one that of all the reviews of Star Trek: The Next Generation, the pilot, I thought I liked its review the most. They said, John Lancie plays an omnipotent character who is in a multitude of different outfits, and he drags himself from one scene to the other in a multitude of different outfits. Drag is the operative word. I love those outfits. I mean, some of them are great. The Robin Hood outfit was great, and the sheriff, or whatever it was, the Robespierre outfit was great, and stuff like that. I liked those outfits. The Heaven outfit I didn't like at all. I didn't think that was good. It's like wearing a rug. Yes. Well, it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is whether the scene is good. Usually, though, is that when you play the good guy, you are really constrained by, much more so when you play the hero than you are if you play the villain. Yes, next. Yes. Oh, the censors on that, yes. Well, when I joined, they had one lady, very nice lady. I think that she was just moments away from passing away, actually. And she would come on and she would watch the show one day a week, and she was the network censor, and she'd go, yes, like that. And when we left, they had two really sharp women watching each and every one of the scenes that Arlene and I did. And we got thrown up to, we were told to go up to the office one day. There was a scene where there's a plane crash, and in soap operas, this plane crashed for 5 days. Yeah. We started going down on Monday, and we were still, plummeting to earth on Friday. And and there was this one particular scene, and I knew how, I'm technically quite good about how the cameras are working, what have you, and I know their areas of vulnerability in the booth. And there was this one line where everybody, of course, is screaming, I'm gonna cry. This is for 5 days, it gets a little, and there was this line where I said, all right, everybody, we're going down. This is it. Put your head between your legs. I saw the opportunity. And I was able to sneak right in there between your own legs, Calliope. Oh, there was some very salacious thing. I see there are children in the audience, aren't there? I've got to keep this. It just would get. There were some very naughty things. We had one instance where, oh, this is not naughty, but this is fun. Arlene and I would just never look at the scripts. It didn't make any difference. As a matter of fact, towards the end, what they were giving us were scripts that had blank pages when our lines came up. And the first day when I looked at it, I went, this is blank. And they said, well, if you're not going to say any of the words we write, we're not going to write any of them. I said, well, you've said that to the wrong person. I mean, because that's not going to keep us down. But, so in any case, with this particular day, I think it was around 10 o'clock or so, or 9:30, I had said to Arlene, I said, listen, hey, let's go and see Alien. You know, you're not supposed to leave the studio or anything else. She goes, oh, no, come on, let's go and see Alien. Yeah, it's going to be great. So in any case, she says, well, we have to be back. You know, we're starting shooting at noon. No problem. It's an hour and a half. I mean, let's go and see it. Well, I didn't know. I really didn't. I mean, and we all know now. Alien is like 2 hours and 45 minutes. So in any case, there we are at the Egyptian, which is this enormous theater. In Los Angeles, theaters are kind of like, movie houses are like temples. And we were there, and there was very few people there. Very few people. It was a 10 o'clock show in the morning. And we're there, and we're watching it, you know, like that. And Arlene's, you know, what time is it? It's fine. You know, what time is it? It's fine. We're going to be late. We got to go. Arlene, shut up. Yeah, I'm leaving. And she goes, I go, leave. Yeah, I'm leaving. I'm getting up now. Okay, yeah. I'm going. Okay. And she got up and she walked out. Now, of course, I know that she was going to only get as far as outside because I have the keys to the car. So I'm still looking like this, you know. And this is just at that section, and I must admit, it is like noon. It is 12, you know, and I myself am getting a little nervous because this movie's taking a little longer than I figured. And in any case, it's just at the section where as science fiction fans, I'm sure you all know the movie, where they're going around at the end there, and the cat jumps out, you know, that section there, you know, and everybody goes, ah, like this. Okay, so we're just right about before that section, and Arlene, if she were here, would pick up the story, and she gets out there in the lobby. She starts walking back in, and of course, it's this enormous theater, and she's blinded by having been outside, and she's making her way back down to where she's sure I am. And they're just people kind of like this around in the theater. And just as that section is coming up, she gets behind me, and she goes, "You're coming now!" Well, it wasn't me. And this guy, I hear this thing behind me. Ah! I'm looking back. We had wonderful times. See, you don't get that on Star Trek. It's much more business oriented. All right, next. Yes. Oh, wait a minute. I've got to ask. You've had 3 now. Yes, scanning here. Any more questions? Yes. That I've done what? I've bitten? Is that what you said? Oh, written. I thought you said, I understand that you've actually bitten a comic. Like a comedian. You've bitten a comedian. I'm glad I cleared that up, because otherwise I'd have to tell you another story. Yes, I did write a comic. I was asked, actually at a convention, for a while I would entertain these what-if questions. You know, what if you could write your own stuff? And at the beginning of doing these conventions, I felt obligated to actually maybe answer all the questions. And I was going to a convention, and I thought, oh, you know what, they're going to ask me, you know, what would I write? Maybe I should think of a story. So on the plane there, I thought of a story. And then, sure enough, somebody asked me, and then I, you know, rattled off this story. Well, about 2 or 3 weeks later, DC Comics calls me and says, I understand you really have a neat story. Would you like to do a comic book? So I said, sure, that would be great. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out to be a fun experience because the person who I was working with just gave me absolutely no direction whatsoever. You know, they said, you know, I said, well, how long do you want it to be? And they said, well, we need 52 pages. I said, okay, how do I determine 52 pages? He said, well, you just write the lines. And it was like that. You know, it was that type of an experience. So I had to kind of come up with, well, okay, you know, maybe I'll do it in script form. Maybe that would work out. And, you know, I'd like to work, you know, and I just didn't, it didn't turn into a collaboration that was very happy for me. And in the end, I wrote, there are A stories and B stories in a comic book, as in most things. And I wrote the A-B story. And when I saw it in its galley form, he had simply pulled out the B story. And I said, why'd you do that? And he said, well, and he didn't have a reason. And so I just was, the only reason I had done it is because I thought it would be kind of kicky to be able to have in a frame up on one's wall, you know, a comic that I had written. Now every time I see that damn comic book, my stomach churns. So that's the story about the comic. It was the first annual, the first Star Trek annual. It's called The Gift. Yes, scanning more? Yes. Well, I don't know. I've done lots of straight serious stuff. Do you get Civil Wars here? Yes. Oh, it just started. Well, I play a very lovable character on that. A psychiatrist who drives his wife to commit suicide so that he can get, you know, more money. That was pretty hardball. Yeah. Oh, I don't know. This Weir film was pretty hardball, but yeah, I've done a lot of, yeah, yes, right. Yes. Well, they don't tell me how I'm going to play it. They write the lines. And, you know, you can bend lines very easily. You can say anything and play something entirely different. And which is good. As a matter of fact, when I teach, I encourage people to do that. You know, what the last thing you want, at least I think, the last thing one wants, is when the character says, I love you, that everybody in the room agrees that the character loves that person. That's really boring. That's not good. So, and if you bend the lines and play different things, you can say, I love you. And some people will say, well, he said he loves her. And other people go, yeah, I don't believe him. You know, oh, no, he really meant, you know. And then that's where the different levels come in. And that's where you get people's imagination to start moving. So I could take, you know, how many men here, or we could make it women, and I could give them, you know, the cue lines, and you would get a different attack on each and every one of those readings. And that's what and so that's what I bring to the character. One of the things when I'm teaching, I also say to my students, if they're not acting well, I say, now listen, why are you playing the role? if you don't bring yourself to the role, why are you playing it? Because I will just simply give the role to somebody else who will bring themselves to the role. I don't need a two-dimensional representation of the role. I need a three-dimensional representation of the role. And that third dimension is you. It's not the lines, and it's not the costume or the set. It's your own inner workings. And the audience is willing to accept any and all of that. And the great well for that, the wellspring for that, is yourself. So I bring a great deal to the character, but I don't bring it in terms of lines. I bring it in terms of coloring. Yes. It's not difficult to do. It kind of depends. I mean, the more attenuated stories about people who kind of become their characters are borderline pathologic, you know, what is it, neurotic and psychotic. Yeah, they're psychotic. Those people are more psychotic than anything else. They're not just, and it isn't in the actor's best interest to lose oneself to that extent. Then we're getting into psychological problems. You have to be able to concentrate, and you have to be able to concentrate in an environment that is not conducive to concentrating in. People ask me about special effects. How hard is it to work with special effects? What they don't understand is that the greatest special effect has been there the entire time, and that is a camera with its attendant film crew. That's the biggest special effect that's in the way to being able to concentrate. So in any case, you need to be able to concentrate, and just as you need to be able to concentrate, you need to be able to stop concentrating on it. And so I don't find it very difficult, although I had one experience that actually landed me that Days of Our Lives job. I mean, I had been working for a year doing 3 plays during that year where I played some pretty tough, psychologically twisted type of characters. And the last one being a character called Bibau, who was a real person. He was a Nazi who ran the ghetto of Lodz, along with a character called Romkowski. A lot of Jewish people would come to see the show. They would be crying and carrying on in the audience. It was a very heavy couple of months. And I was beginning to feel bad. I was beginning to just, I was exercising parts of me that were just, you know, you don't want to be exercising all the time, a way of thinking. And when I was asked to do, a friend of mine called up and said, listen, we'd like you to do Days of Our Lives. And I was asked to do a psychopath. And I thought, oh, shit, you know, another psychopath. And at that point, what I thought, maybe what I'll do is that I'll try to turn him into a comedian, because I need to have that, you know, that release. So I figured that there was no problem about being a psychopath and having a sense of humor, and then it became very successful. Yes, more. Yes. Naughty. Do you hear what he said? Did anyone? Oh, it was wildly popular in America. I'm sure that it probably, you know, bringing coals to Newcastle or whatever it was called. Yes, actually, it's a funny. There is a funny story about that. It's a good acting story, actually, because I tell it to students. One of the things about one of the worst things in acting, one of your greatest enemies, is self-consciousness. And one of the ways in which you overcome self-consciousness is to give yourself something to do. I could bring any one of you up here, and if you simply we simply looked at you for 3 or 4 minutes, you would start to fidget, and your mouth would get dry, and you just start to hear your heart pound and what have you. And self-consciousness would begin to attack you, as it were. Then, if I said to you, okay, I want you to count everything in the room that's red, you would go. And you would see a radical transformation in the person who's here, because they would activate, they would have something to do, and you could see that they would lose their self-consciousness, and they would appear natural. So knowing that, what you try to do is you try to give yourself something to do all the time in your acting. This particular scene was a very important scene. Rachel Ward was walking down. It was the big party scene, and Rachel Ward was to come down the grand staircase. About halfway down, she was to look in this direction, and the shot would then be over her shoulder, and you would see me turn up and look at her. And at that moment, as written in the script, I was to be smitten with love. Well, the camera's down here, 75 people, all the crew and everything else. I'm in position because that's where she's going to deliver the look, she's going to look in this direction, so she needs an eye line. And for maybe about an hour and a half, that stairway is all being dressed, and she's being dressed, and the shot comes down, and she comes down, and she looks beautiful, and they get the shot. Do it a half a dozen times, they like the shot. Great. Okay, let's do the turnaround. That means everything goes up there, about 75 people now traipse up the thing, they dress the thing, they dress the room over here. And during that time, I'm of course released, I don't have to be there, and I'm just walking around waiting to do my side of it. And I'm walking outside, and I'm beginning to think to myself, smitten with love. Jesus Christ. What does that mean? What does smitten with love mean? I'm supposed to be like this? I can't do that. That's ridiculous. What am I going to do? God almighty, I'm really getting nervous about this. God, I hate these things. I'm much better with words. Shit. Then I went, you got to give yourself something to do. John, yeah, we're ready for you. So, okay, I get into place, and just as I'm going there, let me do it like this. I have a tuxedo on and everything else, right? Just as I'm going there, I went, I'll give myself something to do. I said, I'll be there in a second. And I took out the pocket of my tuxedo, and I found the hem, the seam here, and I ripped it open. I made like a big hole there. Okay. Now I got in I came back. Okay, stand right here, John. Okay. Rachel, we're ready for you to come down. Okay. Ready? Action. Slipped over into position. Nobody knew. It was my little secret. I just sat there stood there concentrating on it, and I had that kind of smitten with love look. And I got so much work from that little shot. It just took my mind off of it. It's also, there's a, what's his name? Wonderful actor. He died of what was it? Steve McQueen. He had once said that in close-ups he always tries to have a secret, because a secret is very powerful. It gives you, again, something to concentrate on other than the words, something to do other than the words. So it was a secret, it was something to do, it was obviously outrageous and naughty, and it gave me kind of like a smile. And I mean, and that's an acting, that's a true acting trick. Okay, next. Yes. Oh, I was just being silly. There's nothing. No. Okay, next. Not that I. Is there a 7th season Q episode? Not that I know of. There could be, and in television guide they said that there was going to be, but until I sign the papers, as far as I'm concerned. Yes. If I expressed interest. No. Did you just go wrong? No, because are you asking me if I said to them I would like to do one, would they do it? Oh, no. No, I don't say anything. I do other works. I mean, that's what... while it is a character and that has very high profile, and one that has captured the imagination of a number of people and things like that, it really makes up 1 week's employ for me. And that's it. And as I've said before, I have found in our business, if something is really obvious and clearly the good choice and must be done as, in terms of this would be the best way to go, you can be sure that it won't happen. So I just don't involve myself in that end. I finish the show, and then I go off and do another show. I look for work on another show. People only really want you when you're not available.
Tell us about working with Don Adams. And do you have an aversion to coffee from it?
I thought that it would be a lot of fun to work with Don Adams. Not that I watched his show a great deal, but I knew that he was a very clever comedian and what have you. He made a classic acting mistake, and that is, and he should have known better. Rather than, you must always create. And what he ended up doing on his, whatever it was called, Get Smart Again, instead of trying to create, he tried to recreate. And you can't recreate. So in his attempts to create, or to recreate, he was telling everybody what to do. Who was the guy I liked so much, Manie? Danny, a very famous actor, comedian, who did the Producers. He played the Nazi in the Producers, Mel Brooks's Producers. He also did in Frankenstein, Mel Brooks's Frankenstein. I mean, he's a really no, he played the Nazi in it. It's it's like a Danny or Eddie or I don't know. No. In any case, Don Adams was telling him what to do all the time. Now, I was not Don Adams and I and this other guy worked together a lot. We worked together a lot on the thing. And he was constantly telling him what to do, and I was really offended by it. And And so was this actor, but this actor was smart enough not to say anything about it. But you could see the tension was really high, and it was unpleasant. It was just unpleasant. And there was this particular scene, you know, we were into the film now, and he had made our lives really quite unpleasant. And we were now shooting, you know, we shoot out of sequence in most of the stuff, and we were shooting we were 2 weeks into the film, but we were shooting basically the entrance, the big opening scene of the film, which takes place in this bunker where this door slides open and in comes Don Adams, and it's the whole thing with the coffee and the, you know, all this type of stuff. So I'm sitting there, and it's around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're figuring we're going to be able to shoot the scene in 2 or 3 hours. We'll be out by 8 o'clock. And Don is telling everybody, you know, no, you know, if you said it this way, then I could do that, and you know, no, don't do it that way. You know, do it this way. And these are just, it's so inappropriate for an actor to do that type of stuff. So I figured, I'm going to get this guy. So we're sitting. Don's here and I'm here. And he comes down to sit. And I turned to him and I said, well, the pressure's on now, isn't it? He goes, what? I said, well, this is the opening scene. This is the scene that everybody's been waiting for. The pressure's on you now. I said, I really feel for you. And you could see the eyes kind of roll to the back of the head, you know. And I thought, good. I got him. Okay, we're ready. Well, he came on so manic in his entrance that he didn't wait long enough for the thing to go up, and he comes on boom, like that, bleeding down here, staggers into position, sits down, can't remember his lines, doesn't even know his lines anyway, and at 11 o'clock that night, I'm going, God, why did I say anything? They finally decide, all right, we'll have to come back and try to shoot this tomorrow. We're not getting anywhere. He was gone. But in any case, he got me because I had to come back the next day and do it all over again. Yes?
Well, I was about to say, speaking of coming back the next day and doing it all over again, this is probably a good time to call it quits for this afternoon.
Well, one more question. You know,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll ask a question. You can vote on the question. If it's the question that you want me to answer, yes. And if the person asks a question that you don't want me to answer, you can kind of boo them down. So who wants to take it? Oh, the hand goes down now. How do you do the thing? Subtle. I had once I did a show. I had invited my friends to come and what have you, and it's this kind of drunken. I played this professor, this really bilious professor, you know, and a drunk. And I open up the show with this very long speech. And I'm tootling on. I've been in the show now for a long time, and so, you know, it's no problem. I'm tootling along and everything else, and all of a sudden I feel myself go up. And I thought, what do actors do? You go to doing something. So, you know, well, I'll pour myself a drink. And I'll remember my lines, and the audience is just thinking that he's pouring himself a drink, and he's just stopped talking for a second. But I'm going, Jesus, what are my lines? Let's see now, where was I? God, I can't start from the beginning. No, I don't want to start from the beginning. I better not start there. Okay, I still don't know what my lines are. I'll take a drink. That's right, I'll take a drink. And I turn to the girl who's this kind of reporter, and I smile at her, and like that. And then I go, what? I'll sing. You know, you know, maybe I'll wipe this off. Hoping all this time that, you know, I've been told those lines will come. If you do something and concentrate strongly enough, they will come back. Yes, they will. So finally, I'm just dry as a bone, and I turned to this girl who they had used a college student to do the part because they wanted to save money. And I turned to the girl and I go, so where was I? And she has this look of horror. She looks like a deer that's been caught in the headlights, you know. She's a... And I go, well, I'll tell you what. I've got something I want to show you. But it's in my bedroom. I'll go and get it. So I walk off stage. I mean, now I'm in serious territory, bad acting area, inappropriate acting etiquette. I walk off stage and I go to look for the stage manager. Where's the stage manager? Well, I had never been off stage on this show. You know, I started the show, I was on the whole time. I'd never come off stage before. Well, I didn't know that they go off and play cards. You know, and I'm looking for the book. I'm looking for the script. And I'm going, Jesus, where the hell's that? You know, I'm looking like that. And finally, the stage manager comes in, he goes, what are you doing here? What's going on? I said, I can't remember my lines. He goes, oh my God. And he starts screaming. He can't find it. I go, look, you know, I walk back on and I go, we're going to take a 5-minute break. I still can't find that thing in my bedroom. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. The curtain comes down. And of course the audience is still sitting there going, this is the show. You know? And I go back off and they find the book and I go, of course, you know, so when was your last birthday? Of course. I come back on. I said, well, you know what, I couldn't find it, but in any case, when was your last birthday? Continue the speech, everything else, everything's fine. The other characters come on, you know, the girl gets up, and I say, well, thanks for coming for the interview, and she gets up like this, and she makes herself off the stage, and the other characters come on. By the way, it might be interesting for you to know that some of the characters who came on, Michelle Pfeiffer was one of the characters who came on to this. And so in any case, the other characters come on and they talk and they carry on, and you know, and it's the only time in the play, right after she leaves and the other characters come on, it's the only time in the play where I don't really have anything to say, because most of the time I'm talking all the time. Well, self-consciousness. As I'm sitting there and listening to, you know, the other characters, I begin to go, oh my God, what did I do? I stopped an entire play. And at that moment, it was as if I were in a rainstorm. I just began to drip all over everything. It was just dripping down like that, boom, 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 like that. It was the biggest transformation, because when I looked back up like this, and the actors looked at me, they went, I was just wringing wet as I began to understand, of course, what I had done. And then, you know, and then the play went on. Enough, right? Enough. Thanks a lot.
Big round of applause, everybody.